Hello and welcome, truth seekers. This is the Way of Truth, where we connect to our heart's wisdom. This is Wendy guiding you this evening. It is the full Hunter's moon in Taurus. Tomorrow, technically, on Halloween. And it's also a blue moon. And a blue moon is what you call the second full moon in a calendar month, and they are rare. So we're actually having our webinar a night early. We thought perhaps families or people might have kids or grandchildren that they're doing something with. We didn't know what, but we wanted to do it the night before to ensure more participation. And so I wanted to speak a little bit about the astrology of the new moon that's happening tomorrow night and how that kind of guided this topic that we've been preparing. And on the webinar right now, it's me, it's Wendy, and we also have Melanie, who is one of our community. And in about a half an hour, Shelly, our other life coach, is going to be jumping in to join us. So this will be pretty great. But just to start us off, to give you a little astrology about what's going on tomorrow night, the full moon in Taurus. So the symbol of Taurus is the bull. Our personality in Taurus acts like a bull, charging headlong into situations without thinking and without regard to the consequences, such as a bull in a china shop. It also represents the bull of God, or the determination that is needed to reach one's goals. So this is a really powerful energy to tap into. That with it being Halloween, or Samhain, for those who practice the ancient religion. It's typically known as the time of year when the veil between worlds is extremely thin. And so having a full moon on Halloween in Taurus is highly significant. This is actually a time when you can speak your heart's desires and put out your visions and your intentions, and it's a very, very powerful time for them to be received. The Taurus is the symbol for the third eye, or the bullseye, right? So for setting goals, like bullseye. The primary goal of the sign of Taurus is illumination. It is through the function of the third eye center that light enters the consciousness and brings with it insight, vision, and finally enlightenment. So some other things. Taurus is also associated with sensuality and the body and root chakra. And this is a serious manifestation moon. However, it also holds some security and stability points of interest. This moon is in both Taurus and second house, means a lot of root chakra concerns. So that root chakra concerns, it's like it's like survival. It's like your very, very base needs. So any insecurities we have could be augmented. So the thing to do is feel the feeling and then address it. This is an ideal moon to sit down with the focused intention to shift your footing or position in areas of your life where you feel unstable, disconnected, or rootless. Taurus, the bull, is tenacious and consistently seeks security. If you combine this dig in your heels energy with commitment and a clear intention, whatever you bring will have sure footing and be hard to stop. So here's some questions to consider. What are your emotional survival tactics? this is how it kind of ties into our topic tonight. Are you reacting rather than acting? It's a perfect time to assess your habits and make a conscious choice to move in a different direction, especially if you need to shift from a glass half empty to a glass not only half full, but overflowing. You can shift your relationship with manifest reality to one of security and abundance. The key is to be clear, be focused, and invoke all of your senses. And so in Taurus, in this full moon, your safety depends on the need for stability, which is not easy to satisfy now. You have to learn to accept change as part of your life. The basic problem is finding your own self-respect in order to ensure that you do not mistakenly seek it in material things. When you accept yourself for who you are, it will become easier for you to find peace and tranquility in the outside world. So we're really being asked to do our own personal work. So congratulations for being here. This is one of the gifts of the Way of Truth, is that we can come together as a community twice a month on the full moon, and for women also again on the new moon, to connect in community as we do our own personal work. And so just to let you know, I'm going to move to the next slide here, who we are. So so we are Shelley Chase. She is the raven-haired beauty on the inside with the pink guitar. She's our resident writer and life happiness coach. I'm on the outside there with the glasses. I'm Wendy Spurgeon. I'm your integrative life coach. And I come to life coaching from a previous career in theater, professional theater. And so in 2021, I'm going to be bringing more hybrid offerings, some acting classes and some acting as if life coaching courses, bringing these two disciplines together to actually be able to like embody and practice the things that you are wanting to create. And the Way of Truth is on its way to becoming a school. There is a community of like-minded truth seekers, and we understand that the Way of Truth is personal to each one of us. And the way you get there is by connecting to your own heart's wisdom. So we're creating a safe and sacred environment to seek what that truth is for you. And it is a private secured portal where you can receive guidance via life coaching or through customized online courses, mentoring, group coaching programs, and opportunities delivered through your own secured online portal. So that is who we are and what we're up to somewhat. And our topic tonight is ensuring life harmony, resolving conflict, and creating positive change. So with this full moon in Taurus, I thought, and with everything that's going on in our world, this was a really good topic for us to be looking at, because there's so much conflict going on in the world and so much divisiveness, and we can feel pretty powerless in that. Like it's all just so much bigger than we are, and what can we possibly do? Well, what we can possibly do, and what is arguably maybe the most important thing we can do, is to do our own personal work and ensuring life harmony inside of ourselves and inside of our families and those that we are in immediate contact with, and learning and practicing new skills around resolving conflict and creating positive change in the ways that we can, which may not seem really big or grandiose, but every little bit counts. So I want to, again, thank you for being here tonight, whether you're participating live or whether you're watching this replay. Here we go. All right, so in this program tonight, we're going to explore several key points that you can take to minimize conflict in your life and transform it into harmony and collaboration. So our training tonight is broken down into two components. Part one, what is conflict? We'll be defining conflict. How do you define conflict, and what key elements are at play in all conflict? We're going to look at the seeds of conflict, how the potential for disagreement, if not handled properly, can lead to conflict. And what contributes to conflict development, how your personal behavior can fuel the conflicts you find yourself in. And then we'll move into part two, how to deal with conflict. We'll look at limiting beliefs, how these beliefs can perpetuate conflict in your life. We'll look at the way we manage conflict and what is your preferred method for dealing with conflict. And we'll look at a model step into conflict. It is a practical tool for creating a better outcome in conflict situations. So our first training module starts with defining the term conflict. So conflict, this is a powerful word that implies confrontation and struggle where someone will win and someone else will lose. Because of this, we view conflict situations as threatening, and the possibility of conflict is something to avoid. Sometimes we decide to just walk away from it altogether because of the stress it creates. We all know what conflict is, but how do we personally define it? Because when we can recognize it when it shows up, but we want to understand where it comes from. So now's a good time to take out worksheet number 1, defining conflict, and take a few minutes to read the definitions of conflict on the worksheet and highlight key words and phrases that resonate most with you. So I'm going to set the timer for 2 minutes. So just go ahead and take your time and kind of read through those different definitions and highlight or underline the words and phrases that resonate most with you. And then you can see at the bottom of the worksheet there's a box where you write my definition of conflict. So after you've kind of assimilated that, then kind of write in a definition that resonates most with you. So let's give it 2 minutes. Ready, set, go. All right, and let's give it just another like 30 seconds or so. Yeah, and let's start to come back. And if you can, Melanie, I'd love for you to come off of mute so we can just have a little bit of debrief around this exercise. I thought that was really interesting. So what did you think when you were reading the definition of the different definitions of conflict? What words or phrases popped out at you? And did you come up with your own definition of conflict? What showed up?
I don't have my own definition of conflict. It actually never occurred to me this is the first time I thought about that concept. So I chose the one that I felt was closest to me. So a discord of action, feeling, or effect, antagonism or opposition, as of interest or principles. This is the conflict that I deal with family mostly, since I'm, right. Just a student, Yeah, that's the one that fits me the best.
I think it's I think it's really interesting because it's one of those things, we know it when we feel it, but maybe, haven't actually taken the time to sit down and think about what is it that I'm feeling. I'm definitely feeling the vibe of the conflict, and it feels uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
And there's something going on, like there's some sort of like tone or energy going on in the room between the people who are talking that kind of exacerbates this vibration and feeling in me. But as a kind of a feeling person, I hadn't really thought about like defining it, but it helps actually, because if you can define it, then you can go, oh, that's what's happening, right? It can kind of give you all right, so now what do I want to do to feel okay? Right?
Yeah, and even personally, when I say, I'm conflicted, right, it's because of two opposing themes or thoughts or actions or possible actions. So that it definitely, like, that one is definitely dead on, in terms of conflict.
Yeah. I wrote down to bump up against another's viewpoint or belief you don't understand, right? Because and this kind of ties into the Taurus and the root chakra, right? We feel the safest and the most stable when things are consistent and everybody's sort of thinking the same thing and saying the same thing, and there isn't a bumping up. There isn't like everybody's like kind of moving in the same rhythm and flow, right? And we so like the Taurus and the root chakra in our humanity, right, really wants to feel stability. So when even sometimes when there's just like the very slightest like ruffling of feathers, I know I can get super triggered. I can be like, oh my God, what's happening, right? It's really, and it doesn't have to be a big thing either, but I notice myself start to kind of like get like hyper aware. And as we kind of just like scan over those definitions, and I don't know, like, what if you were just to like guess, what would you say is at the heart of all disagreements?
It's almost fear, but that's not right. Or it doesn't feel right.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
I think it might be right. I think
it could be like, just even the fear, like, okay, somebody's saying something different than me. Oh my God. We can get so attached to our way of thinking and our beliefs and our world views that when somebody says something slightly different, it can cause a huge ripple of fear and self-doubt, like, oh my God, I've built my whole world around this, this mindset, this worldview, and somebody else is saying something else. And you almost defensively say no, and kind of
Yeah.
like, I have to defend my way of thinking and way of life. It's really, it's really kind of very root chakra.
Yeah.
When we get triggered, most of the time, it's because there's some sort of deep fear that somehow we're going to be threatened, right? If I just look at that definition that's up there, conflict is a disagreement through which those involved perceive a threat.
Yes, I did underline that. Yeah. I did notice that one.
Yeah.
And I was, I could see that,
And it doesn't mean that the threat is real. It's just that the threat is perceived. And so, there's like this whole kind of like, I think we talked about it last month around emotional maturity, like growing to a place where we can hold opposing positions and not feel threatened, right? We can agree to disagree, right? Your view, though different than mine, doesn't mean that mine is wrong, right? And we can coexist. It's a huge kind of like upgrading in emotional maturity, but in order to get there, like, we really need to work on ourselves and that security inside of ourselves, because we can't control what's going on outside of us or what other people are going to think or say or do,
Yeah.
So, interactions on a personal level, on a business, government, and religious scale, from our own home to all corners of the world, involve conflict. So therefore, it is more important than ever, and I think especially now, to develop the skills to effectively manage conflicts with others. So let's look a little further at what is at the heart of conflict. So I'm going to move to the next slide here. All right. So how does conflict seem to spring up sometimes out of nowhere, often without warning? How does it escalate so quickly? What makes it so prevalent? Let's take out worksheet number 2, the seeds of conflict. And so the first part of this, think of a recent situation that you've had with someone that could have turned into a conflict, but you were able to amicably resolve it. Briefly describe the situation on your worksheet and then answer the questions that follow. So let's take 2 minutes for just that first part of it.
Okay.
All right. Ready, set, go. All right, and let's wrap that part of it up. And now move to the second part of that. So next, think of another situation in which you were not able to reach an agreement. Briefly describe the situation and then answer the questions that follow. And let's take another 2 minutes for that section. And let's start to wrap that up and come back. And I want you just for now to hold on to some of these insights that have come up. We may be sharing about them a little bit later. But, you know, it occurs to me as I was kind of going through this that whenever choices or options exist, there is the potential for disagreement. And such disagreements, if handled properly, can result in richer, more effective interactions with others. When disagreements are poorly dealt with, the outcome can result in conflict. And conflict creates tension between people through feelings such as dislike, bitterness, resentment, competition, alienation, and disregard. We all have beliefs, opinions, and attitudes that can clash with others, but if handled properly, our disagreements can actually inspire useful debate and progression. Because I kind of, you know, I'm going to just speak to the mirroring theory. If someone triggers you, it's likely because you recognize a quality in them that you've made wrong inside of yourself. You're trying not to be that quality, and you see it in someone else, and it triggers you. And so sometimes the conflict may come from this inner shadow, this inner kind of rejection of a part of yourself. So I kind of keep my eyes open and keep my awareness peaked for when I feel triggered, for when I'm in judgment of someone else, because if I can identify what that is that I'm judging, there's some place inside of me where I am that, and I'm making that wrong. And especially if it's coming to my attention, it's happening for a reason. There's some part of me that I've rejected and made wrong, and if I can find the gift in it and embrace it, it's here to help me get where I'm being called to go, right? There's nothing apart. There's no parts of us that are accidental or wrong. And that's a gift in conflict. But I want to move to the next module here. So what contributes to it? I probably already kind of went off on a tangent. If you've ever been involved in unwanted or unanticipated conflict, a situation that kind of abruptly blew out of proportion and that you weren't even sure how it happened, if you can like think about or reflect on, to what degree does our own behavior, what we say or do, cause or escalate conflict in others? And what can we do to prevent or at least minimize this from happening? So let's take a look at what often contributes to conflict. So I want you to imagine an office scenario, and the two characters in this scene, we've got Bob and we've got Cheryl. And Bob and Cheryl are having a tiff at work. So observe what happens between them. And then we're gonna look at some questions around that. So Bob starts out, "Why aren't those estimates ready for the budget report yet? I told you yesterday that I needed them by 2 o'clock. Thanks to you, I'll be here half the night getting this ready." And then Cheryl responds, "This place doesn't revolve around you, you know. I had customers to tend to. Without them, you wouldn't have a budget to worry about." So Bob retorts, "That may be, but you could have at least had the decency to let me know you were going to be late." And Cheryl snaps, "If you were ever available, I would have told you what was happening." And scene. I know. Glorious applause, right?
That was amazing.
Okay, so just some questions. What would be the likely outcome if this exchange continued between Bob and Cheryl? It was getting kind of heated. What do you think? More words? Some hurt feelings? What do you think would continue to happen if they kept along that path?
Yeah, I just see it disintegrating into chaos.
Right, like coffee cups flying and people storming out, and like that kind of like that toddler behavior, like, "Well, I'm taking my toys and going home," right?
Yeah.
And so what do you feel is contributing the most to the conflict in this situation?
Again, fear. He's up against a deadline. They're not working as a team. Both of them are wrong.
Right. Neither one seems willing to take ownership or is insight. It's kind of about blaming the other person. "Well, if you didn't do this, then I wouldn't have to do that. Well, if you didn't," it's all about the finger pointing and the projection outward, and yeah, huge fear. He's up against a deadline. She's overworked, and it's like and they're not listening.
Yeah, anger. Yeah. He's fearful, she's angry and resentful and everything else.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's easy to do. I mean, I think about like, how do normally intelligent and articulate people so easily fall into such unproductive communication patterns? And I just, the only thing that makes sense is that when we get into fear mode, we revert to a very young, immature level of thinking. Like, it's like we almost go back to that 2, 3, 4-year-old, right? And we stop thinking. It's crazy.
Yeah. Just thinking of the last like proper fight with a non-family person, and it was when I was working at Adobe, helping Jen out, and she's been there for a long, long time. Lovely woman. We were both under a lot of stress, and both really tired. And she had made a comment saying, how long have you been were you ever a server? How long it's, and I, without thinking, in front of customers, said, yeah, I did this as a kid like everybody else. I know.
It just came out. It just came out.
Yes. Yeah, I was like, it's been since I was a kid like everybody else. And not even thinking these were all grown-ass women supporting their families by serving. And I felt like a total asshole. I did. I absolutely... she didn't need to be ugly like that in front of, God and everybody. But I should have never in a million years said that. Because I just devalued like half the team. I'm very ashamed of that. But like I said, in that minute, I am. But like in that minute, she said something, and I am definitely not conflict avoidant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just hit right back, and that was far worse than what she said to me. It was well out of order. No excuse for that.
And it was a reaction, right? It happens when we are not like present and aware. What someone's going to get from us is a reaction, which is not going to be our best. It's not going to be our best voice. It's going to be the right? Like, I think about, if you're a Scorpio, you're going to sting, right? You're going to come back with a zinger. I'm a Cancer, so I might pinch if I feel threatened, right? I can definitely have a sharp word, or sharp look or tone, that will kind of like make someone think again. We all have our kind of unconscious defense mechanisms, and they are unconscious. They are kind of, knee-jerk default reactions when we feel threatened and we're not like taking care of ourselves in that moment. Yeah. And so you learn from those too, right? Like you've like very clearly felt some remorse and despair, and to do it over again, you might have said something different. So there's some learning in that, but there's also some learning on her side too, right? Because, maybe she will think twice about saying that kind of thing in a situation, right? Because you just don't know what's going to come back, right? So there's a co-creation in these conflict situations too, right? And hopefully we all learn. and
You're being very kind. I appreciate it. Everyone assumes because I'm a Pisces, like they think of nice, gentle fish. There are a lot of dangerous fish in the ocean.
That is right. So what can we do when we realize that our emotions are dictating our interaction with someone else? Take a breath, right? Yeah. Just like create some sort of internal space inside yourself to get back to your center, and choose not to take it personally, and just move on to the next, right? And it will pass, right? But as long as we're going to be in relationship with other people, we're going to come up against conflict, right? So like what we're learning today and some of these exercises are going to be really useful. I mean, and I think especially in the upcoming months, because we can notice that there may be just a lot of conflict going on and a lot of people kind of instigating fights and things like that. And so we'll be kind of more aware and go, well, you know what? I don't think I want to get drawn into this little debate here, right? And like what's the best thing for me right now? Maybe it's to politely excuse myself, right? And so it's like it's timely. It's timely to be looking at this topic and some of these exercises to support us in the upcoming months. The powerful conversation. Thank you, Melanie. This is awesome.
You're welcome.
So
I'm so embarrassed to talk. Like,
oh my God, but we all do it, right? Like I've said some really insensitive things and just, you know, in the heat of the moment without thinking, right? And it's an opportunity, right? We have to go, okay, that maybe wasn't my best choice. What would have been better, right? Use it as just kind of a learning opportunity. All right, let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next slide. I thought this was pretty cool. So in conflict, everyone has their side of the story. And the story includes the same types of characters we find in fictional stories, whether in books, television, theater, or the movies. In conflict situations, there are generally three types of characters. There's the controlling villain, the helpless victim, and the righteous hero. And that's why melodramas are they used to be so popular, because they're so simple, right? You have the victim, who's usually a woman, and the villain is a man with a cheesy mustache, and he has tied her up on the train tracks, right? And then the hero comes to save her just in the nick of time before the train comes. And it's like it's something like these three base characters are in our psyches in very, very deep ways. And and again, like, you know, when we feel attacked, when we're not in a place of awareness and we're in that kind of place of like feeling attacked, we usually take on the role of the victim, innocent of the accusations laid against us. We then shift to playing either the hero to stand up to our attacker, or if not careful in managing our emotions, especially the darker ones, we can slip into the role of the villain and attack the other person. Playing any of these roles limits our ability to understand the real problem at the heart of the conflict. It also traps us into an ongoing drama of confrontation that has little to do with reality. However, once we become aware of these roles and how easily we take them on, we can then choose a more positive approach that does not include playing a part. We can choose not to play the victim, hero, or villain, and become objectively curious. And we can appreciate what the other person feels. Curiosity leads to asking questions, listening for responses, and hearing what's really going on, and appreciating why the other person feels the way they do. And further, when the other person feels heard instead of attacked, they become more willing to hear our side of the story. And certainly conflict can be harmful in many ways, but when we can bring true curiosity, respect, and compassion to our interactions with others, we build bridges, deepen relationships, and productively solve disagreements. And we move beyond the drama of confrontation and bring about real conflict resolution. And so now we're going to move into module 4 in our training, limiting beliefs that cause conflict. So in addition to personal behaviors that may contribute to conflict, there are some important limiting beliefs we can hold that perpetuate conflict as well. And these limiting beliefs are simple, yet often forgotten, and are powerful molders of our reality. So let's explore what these limiting beliefs are. So let's take out worksheet number 3, limiting beliefs that cause conflict. There it is. All right, so on your worksheet, you see there's a little girl with brown hair, and she's got on a red dress with flowers and a little bow in her hair, and she kind of has a little pout on her face. So there are 4 limiting beliefs that can create and perpetuate conflict. So being aware of these beliefs can help eliminate the escalation of conflict and lead to a better outcome. So these are ones you want to write down and just kind of keep in mind for the next time you're in a conflict, just to see, is one of these 4 beliefs popping up, right? It's just, this is really good information. So fill these in on your worksheet and record any key points that you want to remember. The 4 limiting beliefs are: 1, that we need to explain our side. We actually don't. So this is a limiting belief. We believe that we need to explain our side. After all, we reason. If they understand our perspective, they will come to the same conclusion we did. If this happens, then everything will be fine and the conflict will go away, right? They just need to be illuminated to the right way of thinking, which is our thinking, right? That's limiting belief number 1. That we need to explain our side. So they have to understand our side first. Number 2, that we are good listeners. The truth is that most of us are ineffective listeners. Listening is much more than being quiet until we get our turn to talk. Listening involves a real effort to understand the other person's point of view. Number 3, that we are unafraid. The truth is that many people live their lives from a place of fear. Fear that they will not get their way, fear of losing something they cherish, fear that they will be made to look foolish or lose face, fear that they may be wrong. And number 4, that there must be a winner and a loser. We tend to think that differences can only be solved competitively, with someone winning and someone losing. Problems can be solved collaboratively. There is a way to ensure that everyone wins. So Melanie, I'd love to hear which of the limiting beliefs mentioned stood out the most and why.
Well, it was the need to explain our side.
Yeah.
That definitely stood out. And I've also, as I've been going through up to this portion, I'm thinking. I thought, well, I really don't like create conflict, or I really, I don't really have a lot of conflicts. Of course I do, but I'd always come from the compromise position, and with the understanding that neither one of us is totally happy, and that makes it fair. I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying that's what I do.
Right.
To reduce conflict, we compromise.
Right.
And it's like, I'm not happy, move on,
We're actually going to talk about that in a little bit, but that's interesting that you had that insight that you tend to go to that collaborative style of conflict management, and that nobody actually really wins there. It's
yeah.
Yeah. So which limiting belief do you think would be the hardest to change, and why?
I could, I'm torn between that we think we're good listeners,
Hmm.
because that's something I've been working on recently, um, and that there has to be a winner and a loser.
Yeah.
Not so for me, but I can see it in my kids.
Hmm.
You know, when they pull me into their fights, that happens like on the daily.
Right. They're seeking validation that someone
Yes.
can kind of like, declare the winner, right? So the
Yeah.
other one can be the loser, and that that's what you need to come to resolution. And I think a lot of that is coming from our outside culture, and the division that we see in politics, and just with
Yeah.
everything that's going on, that there's this desperation for someone to be able to be like declared the right. Like there's
Yeah.
so much righteousness going on
Yeah,
everywhere.
and I told them you're both wrong. Like
Yeah.
you both, you know, because it was Katie and her husband dealing with their daughter Aliana, who is so beautiful,
Right.
but such a little shit lately. You know, it's just that's the mood she's in right now. And Katie was describing a problem they had earlier, and I couldn't believe Katie's behavior in that conflict. I was like, you realize you just lowered yourself to fight with the 4-year-old. Like,
Yeah.
you're not right. You know? And, Kate felt the same way. And I was like, guys, she's 4. Well, she'll be 5, in a few weeks. But still, that's not much better.
Yeah.
So I wasn't going to give them that. Like, no, you don't get that, because she's 4.
And
But
that's
yeah.
it's emotionally where we revert to, when especially when we're really scared, and these are scary times. So again, I mean, I just think this is a powerful time to
Yeah.
um to really give energy to ourselves, and like come to that place of peace, and so we can model it. And yeah, but yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think that um the limiting belief that we need to explain our side of something first comes from, it's like it's that automatic knee-jerk reaction, defensiveness. But right. And when you are in
Yeah.
that place, you can't hear what anyone is saying to you. You are absolutely not receptive to any incoming information or alternate perspectives other than your own, right? We all see things from a different angle. So if we can be open and curious to someone else's perspective, they're seeing it from a different angle. They're feeling the impact in a different way. If we can kind of drop our like automatic resistance and defensiveness, and listen, right? That's what, we go to the next one. Like if we actually were good listeners, then we would
Yeah.
really be trying to hear what they are saying. And if they could see that we were trying to understand, then they'll probably calm down, right? If we can, if we
Yeah.
can reflect back some of what we heard them say, it's gonna reduce tension. The conflict is going to start to die down a little bit, because they're going to start to feel a little more heard and understood, right? The limiting belief that we're unafraid, we're automatically going to be afraid when voices get raised, and when we see other people kind of reacting in a big way, we are going to feel that, right?
Yeah.
Whether or not that even comes from us, we're going to feel it. So like, it's okay to be afraid, right? And it's okay to take a deep breath when we feel that, or to say, whoa, the energy is really high right now. I just like, I'm really trying to listen. I really am. I just feel like I feel afraid, right? Like if you say,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And like for someone to say that, it could actually deflate a lot of the tension in the room. Like, oh yeah, we are getting kind of heated, right? So the limiting
Yeah.
belief that we're unafraid doesn't help us. And then the limiting belief that someone has to lose if we're going to win. That's just like, that is just such a false, it's never worked, right? You know, and
Yeah.
there is a way to find a place that accommodates in a better way than compromising. So holding on to, you know, any of these limiting beliefs can create a perceptual filter through which you view others and can negatively impact how you respond to them during conflict situations. And additionally, it can skew the reality of the conflict situations that you're faced with, right? I mean, if you are like clinging to a limiting belief in any of these ways, you can inadvertently escalate the conflict to a place it doesn't even need to go, right?
Yeah.
So I want to take us into module 5, which is the way we manage conflict. So just to kind of reiterate what we've looked at so far, we worked on creating our personal definition of conflict.
Yeah.
We explored the seeds of conflict by looking at recent situations you've encountered. Discovered the 3 types of characters in conflict: the villain, the victim, and the hero. And we learned the 4 limiting beliefs that could be negatively impacting your relationships, right up there on the slide. So in this next module, we're going to identify your preferred style of managing conflict and learn about the benefits and implication of that style. But before we do, just a few announcements. November, so in 2 days, I'm going to put this up and it'll be accessible. And it's an intensive, courageous love immersion. It is based on that book there, Courage, Overcoming Fear and Igniting Self-Confidence by Debbie Ford.
Okay.
This was her final book before she passed away. So she.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she had been diagnosed with this very rare form of cancer. And so this was kind of her kind of her you know, what is that word? Her magnus, her opus, right? This was her final, right? This was the culmination of all of her wisdom. And as she was in her cancer battle, she was writing this book about courage. And she did actually create a coaching program around that, around the content in the book, which is Courage Coaching. So what this immersion is I've taken all this material, I've audio recorded the chapters, and I've audio recorded the coaching modules. And so this is, it takes about 5 months to move through this material because
so it's self-guided?
Yeah, it's self-guided, but if there's enough people, then we'll do the book study portion of it. So like every 2 weeks we could meet as a group and you know, talk about the chapters, and there can be some one-on-one coaching with it, right? The coaching module is recorded, so you can move through it on your own, but you could also meet with me and we could have a conversation about, you know, what came up for you. So, and this is actually for the next 2 days, available for pay what you can. Okay. So I would recommend, especially because we've got the, you know, the last 2 months of the year and the first 3 months into the new year, and things could be like really wonky and strange. And so I'm recommending this for anyone who wants to like do some deep work at a price they can afford. You can basically, it's like Flow from Progressive, name your own price.
Okay. That's very helpful right now.
Yeah, and kind of move through it at your own pace over the next 5 months, and it could give you a focus that could be really supportive. So, and you know, but I'll say for anyone watching the recording, the important thing to do is to write down thewayofTruth.live, right? That's going to be kind of your base link for all of these, and then we've got that kind of tag link at the end. So for this one, it's courage, right? thewayofTruth.live/courage.
That's / right?
Right. And then in November, so these are, Melanie knows this. She takes advantage of these. We always have two free group transformational trainings each month. On the new moon, it's a sister circle, so that is women only. And so this month in November, that new moon sister circle is in Scorpio. So our topic is sacred sexuality, my pleasure, my power. Very creative. And then our next full moon masterclass will be in Gemini on November 30th. And that'll be a communication workshop. Say it, hear it. A workshop on the power of communication. And you can see the links at the bottom, right? thewayofTruth.live/sisterhood for the new moon sister circle, and communication workshop for the new moon, for the full moon. And then this, I have to tell people about this. This is so good. Shelly is our other coach in the Way of Truth, and she offers for free, Monday through Friday, 10 to 10:30 a.m. Mountain Time, Creative Morning Magic. And it is a guided meditation and journaling for, an early 30 minutes of your day that can just kind of raise your vibe and keep you creating and keep you feeling good and drawing to you all that you are, all your heart desires. It's been incredibly powerful for me. And you can see there, the link is thewayofTruth.live/magic. So you can join us anytime. I am there every day with her, and it's really super powerful. So I just wanted to let y'all know about those offerings. Okay. So now back to our training here. How are you managing conflict? What's your method? When someone is disagreeing with you, what is your gut reaction? Do you feel a sense of thrill at the prospect of a good debate? Do you want to pretend it isn't happening? That's me. Or do you try to find agreement when there are opposing positions? The more you are aware of your natural instinctive style for managing conflict, the better you can manage future situations for a positive outcome. So let's take out worksheet number 4, the way we manage conflict. Complete the assessment to determine your preferred style for dealing with conflict by rating each statement on a scale of 1 to 4 of how likely you are to use this strategy. The scale is as follows: 1, rarely; 2, sometimes; 3, often; and 4, always. Answer the questions based on how you actually respond rather than how you think you should respond. So be completely honest. I cannot see your worksheet, right? This is really just for you. When dealing with conflict, 1, explore issues with others so as to find solutions that meet everyone's needs. 1, rarely; 2, sometimes; 3, often; 4, always. 2, try to negotiate a give and take approach to problem situations. 3, try to meet the expectations of others involved. 4, argue my case and insist on the merits of my point of view. 5, gather as much information as I can and keep the lines of communication open.
I absolutely do that. I will research the hell out of it.
So that's an always.
Yeah, sometimes for good or evil, but still.
6, find conflicts challenging and exhilarating and enjoy the battle of wits which usually follows.
Now, this is interesting. It depends, for me anyway, it depends on the person. My first husband, him and I, we had the best fights. They were awesome. And, you know, the yelling and just everything about it, I absolutely, like, I'm not saying it was the healthiest thing, but in a way it kind of was. You know, like, we let it all out. You know, no holds barred. It was exhilarating. It was amazing.
Right. Sounds like there was
me and I...
like there was a part of
like,
you that you let yourself express. You let yourself express in that. Yeah.
Yeah, we both would. It would, yeah, there would be monumental, amazing events. But with Jeremy, he does not like, what's the word? Like, it's aggressive conflict, verbally aggressive conflict. Any conflict, he immediately is on the defensive. And that's not, it's challenging. Because where I think, like, wordplay the same as swordplay, you know what I mean? Like, let's battle this out, you know? He absolutely not. Nope. So I've had to find other ways of resolving conflicts with him, and I find it very hard. But I wish we fought the same. You know? Well, you don't really take it personally, but
you may find a new style here. Let's keep going. Number 7, being at odds with other people makes me feel uncomfortable and anxious. 1, 2, 3, or 4. Break deadlocks by meeting people halfway. Yeah. That sounds like that compromising style.
Oh yeah, I always end up with that. Yeah.
Number 9, may not get what I want, but it's a small price to pay for keeping the peace.
Yeah.
Right? Or number 10, steer clear of hard feelings by keeping my disagreements with others to myself. Whew, that's a lot to carry. So now
that depends. Yeah.
To find your preferred style, score your assessment as follows. Add together the points for questions 1 and 5. This will indicate how likely you are to collaborate when dealing with conflict. Add together points for questions 4 and 6. This will indicate how likely you are to compete when dealing with conflict. Add together points for questions 7 and 10. This will indicate how likely you are to avoid conflict. Add together points for questions 3 and 9. This will indicate how likely you are to accommodate when dealing with conflict. Add together points for questions 2 and 8. This will indicate how likely you are to compromise when dealing with conflict. So when you're done, Melanie, let me know, what's your preferred conflict resolution style?
It's weird because I got a lot of 7s.
Huh.
I know. Like, I'm making sure I did the math right. Because how lucky you collaborate. Yeah, I'm very likely to collaborate. So that I thought would be higher than a 7. But I also... Because, like, for example, explore issues with others to find solutions to meet everyone's needs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what the problem is. I didn't put, okay, so let's see, 1 and 5. Yeah, so that make that a 9. Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I got uh, dealing with conflict 7. Yeah, I don't have a problem with conflict. So 7 sounds about right. It's that I don't go searching for fights, but I won't.
But you're not going to back down either, right? Yeah, you're tough, right?
I got to fight for.
That's
yeah.
Right. I grew up with boys. You got to be tough, right?
Yeah.
At least you have to present like you're tough in certain situations. That's just what you got to do,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
7 and 8. So yeah, I'm just so. Yeah, collaborate. Yeah, so yeah, this sounds about right. Because I got for accommodate, I got 7, and then compromise 8. So yeah, 9, 7, and 8 for the collaborate, accommodate, and compromise. So that sounds right.
Okay. All right. So that's sounding right.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would change or enhance going forward, or do you feel good about your style?
I don't feel good about my style, and the fact that based on, and not Jeremy can't hear us, he's playing a game with headphones. I've noticed in this relationship with Jeremy, unlike any other, I don't say everything I would like to say.
Okay.
Because he is, as soon as he even gets a whiff that there is going to be any sort of conflict, it is immediately on the defensive.
Right.
And I find that extreme. I can't work with that. I can't maneuver through that, so I don't. I just disengage. But in every other place, we will compromise. But it's like, what to eat for dinner? It's very shallow. Yeah, I don't know how this is going to play out.
Well, we're in our discovery. We're still in discovery here. This is good, right? There's going to be some insight and some ideas that come out of this. So we're in the right place at the right time. Let's take out worksheet number 5, conflict management styles, and take some notes on your worksheet of the 5 conflict management styles. So here we go. So there are 5 key styles for dealing with or managing conflict, and they are, number 1, competing. The competing style is the style in which one's own needs are promoted over the needs of others. This style uses an aggressive approach to communication, has low regard for future relationships, and exercises a coercive sense of power. Those using a competitive style tend to seek control over a discussion in both substance and ground rules. They fear that loss of such control will result in situations that do not meet their needs. So the pros to this style is they're goal-oriented and quick. And the cons,
yeah, that's what I wrote.
Right, goal-oriented and quick. The cons are likely breeds hostility. Right? So that's like the bully. The bully.
Like there must be a loser, and that's not going to be a happy situation. Yeah.
Exactly. Number 2, accommodating. The accommodating style is the opposite of competing. Someone using this style allows the other party to satisfy his or her own needs while neglecting their own, all for the sake of being diplomatic. The pros are preserved relationships. The cons, personal needs not addressed. Number 3, avoiding. The avoiding style is a common response to the negative perception of conflict. Perhaps if I don't bring it up, it'll blow over, we say to ourselves. But generally, all
Yeah.
that happens is that feelings get pent up, views go unexpressed, and the conflict festers until it becomes too big to ignore. Like a cancer that may have been cured if treated early, ill feelings grow because needs and concerns go unexpressed. People are often confused, wondering what went wrong in the in the relationship. The pros of this style: does not escalate conflict and postpones difficulty, but the cons are unaddressed and unresolved problems. So it's just like push it under the rug, keep pushing, keep avoiding, keep pushing it down. And it's like a beach ball that you're trying to push under the water, and eventually it's going to pop up at like road rage, right? That's what happens as a result
Oh,
of
yeah.
the style.
Yeah.
Number 4 is compromising. The compromising style is an approach to conflict in which people give and take in a series of trade-offs. Now, while this is a common approach, the middle ground is not completely satisfying. The parties remain focused on their needs. They don't fully understand the other side, and all parties usually feel they have come up short. So the pros are useful for complex situations without simple solutions. All parties have equal power, but the cons are no one is really ever satisfied. There's less than optimal solutions getting implemented.
Yeah.
And then the fifth one here that I'm not going to be able to list on the slide, but the fifth one is collaborating. The collaborating style is the pooling of individual needs and goals toward a common goal. It involves cooperating with the other party to understand their concerns and expressing your own concerns in an effort to find a mutually and completely satisfactory solution. Collaboration offers the chance for consensus and the integration of needs. It brings new time, energy, and ideas to resolve the dispute meaningfully. The pros are: creates mutual trust and maintains positive relationships, also builds commitment. The cons are: it is a time and energy consuming approach. Now, we each have our own way of dealing with conflict. The techniques you used are based on many conditions, such as your temperament, personality, environment, and who you're dealing with in the specific situation. None of these styles is right or wrong. How effective they are depends on how they are used and the context that they are used in. So far, you've learned numerous tools and tips for resolving conflict with others. Now the learning continues as you discover a practical tool for resolving conflict in everyday life. So, rhetorical question. Have you ever sensed that someone that you're talking to is not on the same wavelength, right? Right? That no matter how hard you try, they can't or don't want to get on the same page.
Yeah.
And now, while this feels very frustrating and unproductive, you can get beyond it. With understanding, empathy, and collaboration, people with differing perspectives can find common ground. So let's take out worksheet number 6, step into conflict. And let's take notes on your worksheet of how to step into conflict. Confronting an issue can make you feel vulnerable. You may expose yourself to rejection. You may be forced to admit that you have contributed to the problem, or it could challenge your own willingness to change. The good news is that there is a simple and effective tool to turn disagreements into positive outcomes. It's called Step into Conflict. The S is for seek to understand. To understand another person, we must be willing to truly hear and empathize with their position. We must be willing to put our own perceptions and judgments aside and focus intently on their thoughts and feelings. Asking to be understood is a way of saying, open your mind to me, and wanting to understand the other person is a way of saying, I'll open my mind for you. T. Then to be understood. Once we understand, then we can seek to be understood. If we show true care and concern for the other person's position, it's more likely that they will try to understand us. When both parties fully understand, they can work together to discover possible outcomes. E, empathize with others. Ask questions and express interest in the other person by listening to their side of the situation without judgment. When we put ourselves in the other person's shoes, we become less defensive and more open to collaboration because they feel they have been seen and heard. P, problem solve. Find ways to solve problems by considering the needs of everyone involved. Brainstorm potential solutions to resolve the conflict in a way that satisfies all parties. Don't get hooked into just 3 possibilities: your way, the other person's way, or a bland compromise. Remain flexible and open-minded, and stay engaged and committed to the process until a solution is reached. And now let's lock it in. So far, you have accomplished a lot this evening by creating your own definition of conflict, exploring the seeds of conflict by looking at a recent situation you've encountered, discovered the 3 types of characters in conflicts, learning 4 limiting beliefs that could be negatively impacting your relationships, identifying your preferred style of managing conflict and learning the 5 conflict management styles, and discovering a 4-step approach to resolving conflict. So for your final activity in our workshop tonight, let's just take a minute or 2 to review our worksheets. And then at the bottom of one of them, I think you don't have any more worksheets, but like on the bottom or the back of one of them where you have space, answer these questions. So what nugget of information are you taking away from our workshop that will make a difference in how you communicate with others? And how will you apply it going forward? How has your perception toward conflict changed?
Shit. Nice.
What? I'm gonna mute. Jeremy's getting really excited in this game. He doesn't realize how loud it is.
It's okay. And just one more question. In what ways do you feel more equipped to handle conflict in the future? Awesome. Thank you so much. This concludes our full moon webinar for this evening on ensuring life harmony. So I hope you found it valuable to further develop your skills to productively resolve conflict with others. Just going to leave you with a few quotes. Dorothy Thompson said, "Peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of creative alternatives for responding to it. And remember, do not be afraid of opposition. Remember, a kite flies against, not with the wind. That's a quote from Hamilton, maybe. And there is the link again. If you want to get in on this, it'll start in 2 days. And like I said, just like Flow, you gotta name your own price tool. All right, lady, thank you so much. Have a great night.
You're welcome. You too, darling. And definitely let's schedule a phone call, because I'm doing the master level of the Reiki now. It's still going to take a while because this course requires about 35 self-healing attunements, and then I think about 15 healing attunements on others. So that's going to take a minute.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk to you. We could do a professional trade, and you could practice on me, and we could work.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, give me a call or a text, or I will too, in the next couple of days. Happy Halloween tomorrow. Enjoy the magic of the moon in Taurus. Love you lots.
All right, love you too, darling. And definitely text me when you have the time, because I'm free.
Awesome. Okay, I will do. All right. Good night.
Okay.
Bye.
Good night.